This is
Make It Plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Thursday. We've not talked in a couple of weeks, and that's my fault. My schedule's been crazy. But I have a moment here in a stationary place to get our very special Thursday guest with us, who's been doing this with us for more than a decade. It is one of our most popular segments because of his experience and insight, and because we have been doing this so long together in a collaborative friendship type way. I think we can probably also finish each other's sentences. And that makes it fun as well. He is the founder of the largest online progressive community, maybe even the largest online community.
No. There's Reddit and there's big ones. Big.
Reddit.
Yeah.
Reddit's more. Reddit.
Oh, Reddit.
You got millions.
Reddit's like half a billion.
But you're more than QAnon.
Yeah. Probably. I hope so.
Bigger than QAnon. DailyKos, and also founder of Civiqs with a Q, a very innovative polling apparatus that is yielding a new way of looking at things, and perhaps even a more accurate way with a larger sample size. And then, of course, he's the host of the new podcast, which is one of also getting a lot of the top downloads, a lot of great downloads, leading in downloads, I should say. That's what I mean to say. The brief Markos Moulitsas joins us from Cali, where I was briefly, folks, for less than 24 hours. We didn't get to see each other because I literally was in and out. It was cold. It was colder then than it was in New York. I don't know. Because, see, the mind, when you live out there, you get it and you hear about it. But let me tell you what the brain does. The brain says California. And so those of us who are from the East Coast, when the brain lands in California, it does not compute cold. And it was raining. I know you need
San Francisco is famous for tricking people into thinking that they're coming to sunny California, and it's not. It's a temperate city. By the way, right now it's 65 degrees and sunny. So you really came on the wrong 24 hours. And from everything that we're seeing, that might have been the last rain we're going to get in months. So you just picked the absolute worst day to make a one-day trip. Because today it's probably going to be up in the 70s. And once the sun comes out, it's a whole different world too. I mean, it's the cloud comes over, you're freezing. The sun pops off, you're sweating. I mean, this is San Francisco East Bay weather in a nutshell.
Do you bother to own a coat when you live there?
So you have to have a coat. And in fact, what you do is you have layers. So I may have a sweater, sweatshirt, then I have a light jacket, then I have a heavier jacket with me at all times. And you could even drive a mile and it's 110 degrees, and you drive the other mile and it's 60 and in the middle of a fog belt and freezing. And so we're very much a area of microclimates, and also just depending on if the fog rolls in, if it's sunny or not. I mean, it could dramatically change the feel of it. I mean, there's days where it says it's 80 and you're cold, and it doesn't, it just doesn't compete. And then other days it's 60 and you're sweating. I mean, the temperature is only part of the question on how you feel when you're out here. 'Cause a lot of it's fog and it's sun. I mean, they had a huge impact. And wind.
It's all out of,
and wind, of
saw
course.
Saw a lot of fog when I was there the other day. But it's still nice to be there. I wish I could have stayed longer to enjoy this nice day you're having.
Yeah, it looks like you. I mean, I saw your social and you were like, it was jam packed. You had so much happening.
Yeah. That was great. And to be clear, folks, I was there for the 10th anniversary of the Live Free campaign, which is one of the leading anti-gun violence, anti-gang violence campaigns in the country. Been around for 10 years, founded by Pastor Michael McBride, with the likes of W. Kamau Bell, a part of it, and Steve Kerr. Now, I met Steve Kerr, the Golden State Warriors, while I was there.
The Chicago Bulls.
Right.
All right. I guess he's done something since. Since he won some championships in Chicago.
Yeah, that's right. All of that. So, and he shared something. I may even have to have him on the show because I guess a lot of people don't know the reason he got involved in this anti-gun violence initiative. He told the story last night. His own father was killed due to gun violence, and he didn't have a place to really deal with that in an activist sort of way. So that's why he's part of Live Free. So it was great. Learned a lot. And honestly, last thing I'll say on this, folks, if you owe it to yourself. I've been talking to them for the past couple of years on Zoom. We've all been doing everything we've been doing on Zoom for almost 2 years, or at least a year and a half. It was so good to see people I had seen on Zoom for 18 months in the flesh for a change. I mean, there's something to human interaction and connection. Some folk for the first time, most not, but some for the first time. And it's funny, Markos, I don't know if y'all would do this at home, but you imagine what people look like in person from the Zoom. And then when you see them in person, they are nothing like. Everybody I thought was tall was short. And everybody I thought was short was tall.
So what was Steve Kerr?
Well, I knew he was tall. I mean, I already knew he was tall. I'm talking about him, but there was some other people like, wow, okay. And so it was really, if nothing, it was worth it just to kind of see. And people were genuinely glad to see one another. So that was that. Still fighting the fight for gun violence. Live Free, folks. Check them out. All right. And then we'll have to find another time to go back when everything's normal and we can see Markos in person and DailyKos headquarters and all of that. So this is a great time for us to talk. We've not talked since Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm anxious to hear your assessment, postmortem, or whatever. So
before Virginia, I believe we talked about it because that's all I've been talking about. There are several questions that I hadn't that I was really interested in finding out. Right, one of them was, will Trump voters turn out if Trump is not on the ballot? And historically, they had not. They turned out in 16 and 20. They did not turn out in 17, 18, and 19. That's why Democrats won big, even in places like Kentucky and Louisiana, in those off years. So that was one question. Second question was, will suburban, college-educated white women stay in the Democratic fold or go back to the Republican Party, which is their ancestral home? So those were the two major... Oh, and the third one was, will our base turn out?
Okay.
And so we got answers. And they're not the answers that we hoped we would get. This was basically a whole lot of bad news, right? Trump voters turned out. They did. Suburban white women, and the data is incomplete and it is early. So I just want to caveat that. It may change as we get more information. But as it looks right now, it looks at least some of those suburban, college-educated white women went back to the Republican Party. And third, it looks like we held our base performance was okay. It did not keep up with Republican base performance. And there's a bunch of caveats. One is the data's early. But in Virginia, Youngkin, the Republican governor-elect, got 300,000 less votes than Donald Trump in 2020. So the drop-off was 300,000 votes. Terry McAuliffe, his drop-off was 800,000 votes. 800,000 fewer votes than Joe Biden got. Now, some people will say, okay, yeah, but 4 years ago, McAuliffe got 200,000 more votes than the previous 4 years Democrat did, right? So that could be base performance. So he did better, except that Youngkin got 500,000 more votes than 4 years prior in that governor's race. It's hard to overcome those kinds of numbers. And it was even worse in New Jersey. Like, we held everything that we needed to hold in New Jersey, but the drop-off from Joe Biden to Phil Murphy, who was a popular governor, the drop-off was about 1.2 million votes. And that's why we went from New Jersey being a safe blue state that Biden won easily to Murphy winning it only by 3 to 5 points. They still haven't posted the final number, so we don't know what the final margin is going to be, but it's going to be around there, 3 to 5 points. Much, much closer than anybody. And there was a point at that evening where I was looking at the numbers going like, guys, like, this is not looking so good. Turns out vote by mail was the last thing to have been counted, and apparently they're still even counting it a week later, so who knows what's going on there. But it's almost a worst case scenario, right? It's Trump voters came out and suburban white women who were turned off by Trump going back to the Republican Party. Now, the other big caveat, and this is an important one, is that both Youngkin in Virginia and Jack Ciattarelli, I think is how you pronounce his last name, in New Jersey, they both ran as far away as possible from Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Like the Republican in New Jersey was literally, he's a never Trumper. And in Virginia, whoever kept Donald Trump from visiting the state, like is the Republican MVP, because they were paranoid that Trump would show up because he would have motivated our base more. That's obviously not going to happen in 2022.
More MIP after this message.
And it's important to realize that governor elections are not national elections. In 2019, we won the governorships in Louisiana and Kentucky. And nobody thought, oh, well, Joe Biden can win Louisiana and Kentucky in 20. Nobody thought that, right? Governor elections are a place where people are not afraid to cross party lines. We have Republican governors in Massachusetts, in Maryland, in Vermont. Nobody's going to say that those states are going to go Republican in any Senate or presidential race anytime soon, right? We have Democratic governors in Louisiana, Kentucky, and in Kansas, and several other red states. Again, people are okay crossing over in governor elections in a way that they're not in federal elections. So there's a lot to be worried about seeing these results. The fact that Trump voters came out is just, that was kind of like a wish, right? Like, oh, if they don't turn out, everything will be easier. They turned out, everything is harder. But next year, it's a whole new ball game. A year is a long time. And if we can get our Biden vote to turn out, we're going to be in better shape. And I'm hopeful that a midterm election with Congress on the line may bring that vote out. But there's no guarantees, right? I mean, we just saw last week that this is going to be a lot harder than we hoped it would be.
The Biden vote to turn out, but isn't part of that Biden vote suburban white women who bolted in Virginia? I mean, if we talk about the Biden vote, that included suburban white women in 2020, didn't it? Yeah. So I like what you said about ancestral home. That's funny and also not funny. That's problematic. I mean, it was that, and it was clinging to that ancestral home, and it really brought Trump in office. White women made the difference then too, in 2016.
No, for sure. But it's clear that suburban college-educated women are swinging now. They may be the only demographic that is a swing demographic in America today. There's a question about turnout, right? You got to goose your turnout. So if your people don't turn out, it doesn't matter what those suburban white women do. But assuming that you get maximum turnout, absolutely those suburban white women are gonna tip things one way or the other. And given how close the battleground states were, it's actually kind of scary for next year because all the competitive Senate races are in swing states, right? Pennsylvania, right. Wisconsin, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, New Hampshire. I mean, literally every single competitive Senate seat is in a battleground seat. And yes, our turnout's going to matter, and trying to win that suburban white woman vote back is going to matter. We have some assists, though. I mean, because some of these Republican candidates are literally wife beaters. I mean, Herschel Walker in Georgia and Sean Parnell in Pennsylvania are literally, documented history of domestic abuse, and they're Trumpy, and they can't distance themselves from Trump because they are made by Trump. And I don't even think they want to. Like, some of these people are like,
No.
they're right there, like, wrapping themselves around Donald Trump. And so the question then becomes next year is, okay, these are very localized elections where the candidates were successful in distancing themselves from Donald Trump. Nobody thinks that's going to be a thing anywhere next year. Donald Trump's got his fingers in every single primary. He's going to be going to every single state because he does what he does for himself. He doesn't think, what's the better pick? Like a Nancy Pelosi can say, all right, I'm going to stay out of this district because I'm not going to help my person in this district. And I might even let him vote against the Democrats a couple of times just to show how independent they are. Like, there's a strategic mind behind it. Donald Trump doesn't have that, right? He's gonna demand fealty from every one of these candidates. And so last week we found out what happens if Joe Biden's the sort of the marquee figure, right, the head of the party. And right now Joe Biden's numbers absolutely suck. Civiqs was the first polling firm to see that happening. And I remember liberals attacking us, saying that we were full of it because we were showing Joe Biden's numbers gradually. It's been a very gradual, steady decline. It's not like Afghanistan. Suddenly he plummeted, or legislation not passing. It's been almost from the start a very slow, steady, gradual decline, which means that hopefully maybe that can be reversed. Doesn't look like systemic and caused by any one issue. It's just a disenchantment. A lot of shades of 2010, right, with Barack Obama, where people were just getting tired of the legislative grind and of nothing happening, and very familiar to what's happening with Build Back Better right now, not to mention things like voting reform and things like that. So we saw last week, it was really about Joe Biden and high gas prices and inflation. Those issues actually had salience. What happens if Donald Trump steps back in and tries to make the cycle about him? And he's going to try. And so that might offset some of these trends. And that's what gives me hope for next year. Because if this was a regular cycle, Donald Trump had just faded into history, we'd be looking at major losses next year. As is, I think we still have a chance.
More MIP after this message.
So, a couple questions on Virginia before we look at the chance for next year. First of all, do we need to talk about the candidate himself, Terry McAuliffe? Was his candidacy and him running again himself? Some are saying that's problematic. I'm leaning in that direction. It doesn't say Terry's a bad person, but from my point of view, Virginia governors can't succeed themselves, and so I don't think that there's much of a culture in Virginia that is so welcoming to somebody coming back that way. Now, they may not have had a choice, but that speaks to our lack of a bench, Markos. They should have been other people running who were prepared to run.
Mark Warner did it. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily true, that Virginia is not, that they don't like repeat performances. And we saw that decline in Democratic performance everywhere. So it's not like we did really well in New Jersey and did really well in Pennsylvania. And, okay. So I would make that less. And the reality is that Terry McAuliffe was a nominee because black voters in Virginia thought that he was a safe choice. They did the Joe Biden formulation. Terry McAuliffe won his primary on the strength of black vote. And it was that same.
Well, I didn't look at the numbers. Are we sure that the black vote wasn't split between the three of them?
No. It was he won because of the black vote, and I'm telling it's the same, and it worked for Joe Biden, right? So they thought we're not gonna this is too important. We're not gonna risk it by choosing somebody that racist Virginians can vote against, and I actually believe, we've talked about it before, that Joe Biden was probably the only Democrat in that crowded field that probably would have beaten Donald Trump in the end. given how close it was. And so in the presidential, I like the black vote in South Carolina probably saved the Democrats from in the country from another term with Donald Trump. It was the same formulation. It's like let's not give racist Virginians a reason to be afraid to vote for us. Let's go with a safe pick that we know is okay. And fact is, Democrats got 200,000 more votes. Terry McAuliffe got 200,000 more votes than in the previous 4 years. And I think given the first time he ran, it was like 600,000 more votes than the first time he ran, right? So it wasn't like he turned off people. And again, it's very, very early, but I'm not seeing a big drop off in the the sources of black votes like Alexandria and Arlington. I'm not seeing, so I don't think it cost. I just think it was a general. The Trump vote turned out, and our vote did not turn out at the same intensity as the Trump vote. And Trump vote turning out without any Trump involvement, I almost wonder if Trump sticks his nose in, if that may actually hurt somehow. But somehow Republicans, Youngkin figured it out, how to get the Trump vote out without directly, kissing Trump's ring. And that is what's, I don't know if it's dangerous. It's almost like this was a very low-cost way for us to learn this lesson. I mean, imagine had we learned this next year when we lose Congress and, we're screwed. Now we know. Nobody's going to pretend that the Trump vote isn't going to turn out. I used to always say, I hope they don't turn out, but we have to assume that they do. Now I don't even need to say that. Now we're like, they're going to turn out. They are going to turn out. If we don't maximize every vote we can possibly get, we just can't overcome that. And so that's the now we know. And hopefully people are preparing, and hopefully people with the money are funding organizations that are registering people to vote and getting them engaged, because this is a fight for, if we lose next year, I think 2024 is seriously in doubt. And then we know nothing good can come if we can't win in 2024.
So second part of the question, and this alludes to 2022, the issue itself. I think it helped to get the Trump vote out because Youngkin exploited critical race theory. He did everything the Trump Fox News way, even though Trump wasn't there. And critical race theory is the Trump and Fox News way. How much of a factor do you think that really was, that whole debate around critical race theory and it morphing into parents having a say in the school system and education, and then the gaffe by Terry, parents shouldn't have a say?
Yeah, that was a big one.
And that was a big gap. So how much of that, because I think that has to be considered, because if so, we got to have, they're gonna critical race theory us to death next year.
Yeah.
So we got to have an answer for that.
I again stipulate that it's all early and we have incomplete data. I don't get the sense that critical race theory by itself was much of a factor other than motivating their base. Like, I don't think it was a persuasive argument. And in fact, Youngkin never made that argument explicitly, right? It was all dog whistles and publicly in his ads. I think what that tapped into, though, and this is very real, and it also tapped into Terry McAuliffe's gaffe about parents shouldn't have a say, is just frustration with a year and a half of COVID restrictions and the mask, and why can't we get back to normal? And student athletics are hobbled, and I think it was just a general miscontent with the entire COVID-induced shutdowns.
Okay.
And everybody is frustrated. Even here in Berkeley, where everybody agrees with the shutdown, people were still annoyed at the shutdown, right? You can do both things. And this is where Republican efforts to prolong the pandemic, I think, actually play into their favor, right? Because it exacerbates those supply chain issues. It makes it harder for companies to hire because a lot of people retired early or don't wanna put themselves at risk because of COVID. And it just, that malaise, that why can't we just get back to normal? And people are desperate to get back to normal. And if everybody had vaccinated, we'd be there by now. But by prolonging it, yeah, they may kill a bunch of their own people off, which they are. I mean, at this point, I think it's 5 times as many deaths in red counties and blue counties. Yeah, they're killing off their own people, but in their formulation, because they're psychopaths, like, it's worth it because they just got the governorship in Virginia, right? Killing off a few of their own supporters, well worth it for them to prolong that malaise. So next year, and it's funny, they're all complaining about high gas prices, right? They're going to punish Democrats for high gas. Aren't these the same people that tell us that everything is socialism? So, I mean, are they advocating for the government takeover of all petrochemical companies so we can regulate the price? I mean, it's just absolute nonsense, right? But by next year, those supply chain issues should be addressed. There will be even more Americans, because now that kids can be vaccinated, that'll continue spreading certain degree of immunity. Things are gradually getting back to normal. I mean, we may have a world where you just open up and, yeah, sure, red counties keep dying in large numbers, but they got their freedom. Yeah, and the rest of America that is vaccinated can open up more safely. There's several COVID pills now that are supposedly going to drastically reduce the amount of death in ERs. I mean, so there's elements in place that will hopefully get people less angry at Joe Biden for this general malaise. But what's really interesting is Civiqs did some polling, and about, 3-4 months ago, it wasn't even more. It's about 6 months ago, they asked, what are the issues that people are concerned about, right? And at the top was jobs and the economy, and housing was top 3, and healthcare was top 3. So what you would expect in, towards the pandemic, people were afraid of losing their jobs, they're afraid of losing their homes, they were afraid of getting COVID and dying. We just did the same poll, same questions 3 weeks ago, and those 3 issues are now at the bottom, top 10. Nobody's worried about their job, not nobody, but statistically, very few people are worried about their jobs, about housing, and about COVID. At the top of the list was things like inflation, the price of consumer goods, the price of gas. So it just shows you how effective Democrats have been in sort of bypassing the stimulus plan, how effective they've been in having people feel secure about the most important things: housing, jobs, and their health. Mm-hmm. Now, it also shows how poor they are in selling that accomplishment, so that Republicans have stepped in and made gas prices and immigration and critical race theory the craziest, most important things to worry about, as opposed to during Trump, you weren't even sure you were going to have a job. Now people are secure and they're amped up because the Fox News conservative machine has amped up on this nonsense culture war stuff. And gas prices, which as a colleague said, a DailyKos colleague said, it's the one economic indicator that you see in 2-foot letters everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm. So Democrats also made the argument that the non-passage of the bipartisan infrastructure bill hurt the race in Virginia. Do you agree with that? I mean, they got the Build Back Better crowd to pretty much, they didn't compromise, but House Democrats by a majority compromised on the original plan to not pass infrastructure without Build Back Better. And that came from we lost Virginia, we got to do infrastructure. Terry McAuliffe said, if we had that, I would have won. Do you agree with that?
No, that's stupid. Nobody was sitting there going am I going to vote? Now, what could have had an impact, and I don't know how you even begin to measure it, is just general dissatisfaction in the inability of the party to do something about it. Now, if Terry McAuliffe said that to my face, I would have said, well, you should have talked to Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema because this shit could have been passed 6 months ago. I mean, we haven't been sitting here waiting on it because of progressives. We have literally been waiting on Manchin and Sinema to get their heads out of their asses and agree to something. So that's a stupid argument. But so there may have been a general malaise again as people are just frustrated at politics and things not happening and thinking, well, we won the House and the Senate and the presidency, and yet here we are still. And it's got nothing to do with Republicans. It's literally Democrats arguing with each other. And don't even use the filibuster as an argument because the Democrats could get rid of the filibuster today if they wanted to. So there might have been some dissatisfaction in that. But Terry McAuliffe got 200,000 more votes than the gubernatorial Democrat got 4 years ago. The lack of Build Back Better did not motivate those Trump voters to turn out. That's what hurt him, is that they got the Trump vote to turn out, and we did not get the Biden vote to turn out.
But you mean the lack of infrastructure didn't motivate?
Yeah,
Trump
I don't see nobody's sitting there looking at the news, saying like I'm going to vote only if.
But since you put it that way, here's the question: would Build Back Better have gotten more Democrats out? Not infrastructure. But if Build Back Better, the human infrastructure, and all that stuff that goes with it, might that have gotten more Democrats out?
Maybe. I mean, not because of anything that the legislation did, because most of that stuff, we're not going to see those effects for years, right? I mean, this is this is a 5 to 10 year spending plan. This is not exactly. Might have excited some people to turn out and vote. I actually think that if you really like, youth turnout was way down, which is normal, but what have young voters gotten for their support for Democrats so far? I mean, they had only two issues that they really, really, really care about. One is student debt relief, and the other is global climate change, legislation to address global climate change. I mean, a lot of that stuff has been stripped out because of frickin' Manchin and West Virginia coal, right? So I'm not sure if I'm a young voter, Democrats haven't done anything other than not have a racist, bigoted, misogynist in the White House, right? That's progress. But they haven't seen any, and these are young voters. They don't have the long arm of history to inform them of the long-term benefits of party building, blah, 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 right? They don't see that. They're like, they finally voted for the first time and nothing happened, and now they're disenchanted. So for sure, one of the ways you turn things around for next year is you do $50,000 debt relief.
Yeah.
And stop, we need to worry about the legality. No, do it. Do it. If the Supreme Court slaps you back, oh well, then it's on the Supreme Court. It's not on Joe Biden. Right now, it's on Joe Biden. And, I remember Donald Trump, he just did whatever he wanted. Made his base happy. And the courts would slap it down. It didn't matter. He got the headlines he needed. He got to brag to his supporters that he had their back. We can't do that because, Joe Biden's worried that the Supreme Court's going to rule against him on student debt administrative relief or whatever. Quit that nonsense.
Yeah.
Quit it.
Yeah. So, finally, Markos, and maybe it's not something you prepared to answer today, but I think we do have to figure this out. We know that they're going to still try to mobilize their base, even without Trump, even if they keep him in the background. Everybody's pushing this critical race theory. They're going to go to the race card like they always do. What can Democrats do about that? There has to be some way, because honestly, what the consultant class and the mainstream Democrats, don't get into it. Don't talk about it. Run from it. Just pretend like it's not there.
It's fake, right? Which it was, but that was the response. It's not real.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't think that's going to get it.
No.
And I would let me say this. I would add though to what you said about young people. I think there are three things. If we look over the past year with young people, there's student debt, climate change, and a lot of young people, including white ones, were a part of the reckoning, and they don't get why there's nothing that can be done about that. They don't get why, Kyle Rittenhouse is looks like he's going to get away with something. So I mean, I think that's there. Two, and I wonder if Democrats need to have a little more courage to take issues like that on some type of way. and to speak to them more forcefully. And I'm gonna deal with that now. We want to have time to get into today the issue of women, because our friend Ellie Mistel tweeted something after Virginia, and it was that women in Virginia voted for Youngkin the day after the Supreme Court heard oral arguments that could be used to strike down Roe. But we'll say that for next week. But I want to ask you on just the CRT, the racial stuff. Is it the Democrats need to do more than just say it's fake and it's not real? It is fake, but what is real is that people are using it to promote, their racism and do fearmongering.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons I don't think it was the issue that moved things is that by and large, CRT was like the issue in school board races across the country, and very few of those conservative, anti-critical race theory candidates won. It happened in a couple places, but by and large, it did not have a huge salience. Now, where Terry McAuliffe screwed up and said parents have no say, right? That just inherently, like, no parent wants to, like, nobody, like, I have a say in my kid's education. Like, don't tell me I don't have a say. I could pull my kid out tomorrow. I have a say in my kid's education. Even if I agree with what the school board is doing, and I do in Berkeley, right? Like, don't tell me I don't have a say. I have a say. Right, but it's that other piece. It's that CRT was a stand-in for just general dissatisfaction with just the zeitgeist, right? And it's acknowledging that, yeah, it's frustrating that things have to shut down and that the quality of education has suffered as a result. And I'm not a strategist, so I'm not the kind of person that you talk to if you need the solution. But it's clear to me that just saying everything's fine, it's all fake, clearly, because they're filling in the blanks. And if you look at Youngkin's campaign, it wasn't they're teaching your kids to make your white kids feel sad. That wasn't the campaign he was running publicly. The campaign he was running publicly is, I don't have a say in my kids' education. That's easy to address. Just say, yeah, I give you a say in your kids' education, because parents have a say in their kids' education already. There's already a whole entire mechanism with school boards and everything for them to have a say in their kids' education. So I think a lot of it's just like nodding along saying, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, no, you're right. You should totally have a say.
Yeah.
The end. I mean, this is not a fight. And then, Republicans are talking this nonsense about a parental bill of rights. Co-opt that crap. Like, there's so much in the Build Back Better that is just change the name. Build Back Better. What a freaking stupid name. The parental, middle class bill of rights. Like, call it that. The parental bill of rights. What? Oh, so you got money for pre-K education, and you got the child tax credit. Like, this is all stuff for parents. There is so much for. I mean, if you're a single person in America, you have more to complain about if you look at our policy and our spending priorities. But as a parent, like, we as a society have decided that parents get extra help because kids are important. And so sell that.
Yeah.
Build Back Better. What the hell is Build Back Better? No. Freaking, this is the parental bill of rights part of the Build Back Better bill. There you go.
I like
Boom. And there's plenty. You can just throw all that stuff in there and talk. Oh, Republicans want parental bill of rights. Here's what we did for parents.
Well, it's funny that you say that. I like that. I like what you said about co-op, because that's what we don't do. We'll say, oh, this isn't real. And even Obama came out, this isn't a real thing. But we're not good at taking things back from them that they steal. I don't know that I've ever heard, Markos, ladies and gentlemen, nor have you, so passionate about the name of a piece of legislation. Like I said, we have been on together for a few. This is like he's been waiting the past 2 weeks to say that. The way he came out, freaking stupid. I mean, that's real passionate issue.
I'm so frustrated. So Civiqs did another poll, and this is the sort of thing where people will say that they benefit from the child tax credit. They'll benefit from extended unemployment benefits. But if you ask them which party is responsible for those things, only about 30% get it right. So we people will say, yeah, this helps me, But yeah, no, it wasn't the Democrats that got that for me. Like, we were terrible. I mean, and it goes back to even Joe Biden not signing those extended unemployment checks or the stimulus checks. Donald Trump signed them.
Right.
The president was set. You may feel it's icky, and it is icky, but freaking play the game until Republicans don't like it. Okay, then we can pass legislation that the next president can't do it.
Yeah.
There you go, problem solved. But we unilaterally disarm time and time again. So how are these people going to think that Joe Biden was the reason that they got those stimulus checks? There's no reason for it. Zero.
Point. Yeah. We're not nimble with that kind of stuff. You know, we kind of clunk around like Frankenstein, and just we gotta get better.
So
we
frustrating.
gotta get better. And I really do. I think we have to be smart. Well, I'm relieved to know if you're saying that in some of these races, CRT wasn't a factor, but they're not gonna.
Most.
But I mean,
in most.
But I like
school board races. I'm saying.
I like to actually put my eyes on those school board numbers when you have a chance to send them to me. But they're going to keep pounding their drum, and that still does not excuse us from not coming up with better ways.
Oh, we have to respond now.
With better ways. I'm just going to throw this out there hypothetically. So, you know, if it was really, so the women said that it was about education and having control over education, and he had the woman with the commercial about the Toni Morrison a book and all that, and then some of the women who were interviewed on the exit polls, because, you know, the mainstream media, our friend Eric Bollett always writes about this. They have to go interview Republicans all the time. They don't interview Democrats. Republican voters, not Democratic voters. But what was really going on? Well, you know, I didn't like some women said, I didn't like the fact that Terry McAuliffe was up there with the teachers union, and they were the ones who argued last year to keep schools closed. And I was like, you wanted schools to be open in the middle of COVID? I mean, who? What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So you gotta.
Yeah, they wanted their kids at risk. I will never understand how conservatives broke basic parental instincts to keep our children safe. They broke it.
I'll be honest with you though, Markos, and it's going to sound cynical as hell. When they say these things, is it really what they feel, or is there an element? I'll just stay over Virginia now. I'm not going to go beyond Virginia. Knowing the history of Virginia, knowing Virginia's tendencies, because we've had a good run. You know, Virginia usually would go the way of the presidential midterms. It would go back and forth, Democrat, Republican. So we've kept it blue longer than in any other consecutive time in history. I just wonder if some of these people, they say these things, well, this is important to me, CRT and education and kids getting back in school in the middle of COVID. Or is that still like Youngkin, it's a cover? I really am a Trump voter. I really am a racist. But I'm going to say something else to make it look like I'm something else. I didn't want the teachers union to make my kids go back to school. What?
Oh, I have no doubt that Youngkin is actually a Trumpist at heart. And we have undercover video, right, where he told somebody that I can't talk about abortion, but, you know, if I win, I will work to make abortion illegal in Virginia.
Yeah.
So we know. Now, the thing is, he's gonna, by all indications, he's gonna try to govern Virginia as a moderate. And I think he's going to get eaten alive by that Trump base. They're going to eat him alive. And it's because it's all or nothing, right? I mean, there's no room for dissent anymore in the Republican Party. So he was able to play that dog whistle game very adeptly, and he did it. He was very successful at communicating that he was a conservative, hardcore conservative, underground, you know, behind the scenes on social media and stuff, while on TV he was a fuzzy, lovable moderate with his cardigan sweater. So good luck governing. Good luck governing when you weren't honest to anybody about where he stood, because there was two different candidates in that race. I'll give the Republican in New Jersey credit. He had one speed, right? He didn't try to play any dog whistle stuff. But yeah, in Virginia, which was more hotly contested, he played that game and he won. But he's not going to make anybody happy, and we're getting to the point now. It feels like that the country's ungovernable with how polarized we have become, and with such an incredibly large percentage of the American population that doesn't even adhere to basic reality anymore. We're not arguing whether rich people should get tax cuts or not, right? They're arguing basic notions of reality. And it makes the country increasingly ungovernable. And in a state like Virginia, I don't know how Youngkin's going to manage. Maybe he'll pull it off. He ran a good campaign. Maybe he'll pull it off as governor. But I see it much harder for him to walk that tightrope.
Folks, check out Civiqs with a Q. Check out DailyKos. Become a member of that citizenry if you're not already. And The Brief as well on YouTube and weekly and wherever you get your podcast. Markos Moulitsas, as always. Thanks as always, buddy.
Such a pleasure. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.